What's up, everyone, and welcome to Project XTalk, an Xbox podcast, episode number 202. Almost said 102. We're going back in time, and I just exited out of the show notes. My name is Kevin. I am your host as usual, and it's a train wreck today, let me tell you. We're going to talk all about that Starfield Shattered Space, but before we get to that, I got to introduce my co-host, not the normal Sam that's with me. I called in some reinforcement. Unfortunately, Jam Pack Sam is away today dealing with some family issues. But Sam Heaney from No Limits, our PlayStation show. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing very well. I'm happy to be here. I've been on XTalk a few times. I like collaboration. We're working on stuff behind the scenes, and obviously we did a crossover for Patreon. But no, I really like being here. I want to do it more. And when duty calls, when the commander asks, for instance, when one must answer the call, and that is me.
That's right. Well, I appreciate you filling in. I literally messaged him like 15 minutes ago, if anyone's curious. So he was raring to go at midnight his time. So
I was actually in bed, completely nude, and I was like, "Well, this is what I got to do."
Wow. I will answer the call, just like Helldivers. Yeah. All right, yeah, you just got that Helldivers mentality. But let's get through some housekeeping before we dive into the show proper. This is Project XTalk. We are live every Thursday right here on youtube.com/SaveTheGameMedia. If you can't catch us live, plus every Friday morning on your favorite audio platform of choice. We're over there. Make sure to drop us that 5-star review. It helps us in those algorithms. If you want to support us even further, get early audio access to all of our content and exclusive bonus content, head over to patreon.com/SaveTheGameMedia. Choose the tier that's right for you, like our current Patreon supporters. So thank you to Fabulous Brianna's mom, Brianna's brother, Lindsay, Nikolai at Night, Cypher, Primus, Brendan Myers, Marcus O'Neill, Lillian, Mimi J, David Hotright, Dave Harp, the Xbox Expansion Pass, Alpaca Tom, Lee Navarro, Silknit, Ellerwood Parker III, Chad, Shelby Macy, and Rick Davis. Thank you all for your support. We appreciate each and every one of you. We're not done with housekeeping yet. I want to announce on the podcast, we've announced this via the social feeds and the Discord, but our Extra Life donation page for this year is live. The link is down below, whether you're listening on YouTube or audio. Go click that link because we're giving away the best prizes we've ever given away for Extra Life. So here, I'm just going to read them off for you in case you missed it. So we got PS5 codes for Riders Republic and Far Cry 6. We got a Helldivers 2 giveaway. You can get that on PS5 or PC. We're giving away Dragon Age The Veilguard, any platform, whatever. If you win it, it's yours. Astrobot for PS5. And our grand prize, an Xbox Series S console with 3 months of Game Pass Ultimate. So if you want all the details about how you can win those, donate to our Extra Life. Check out the page. Like I said, link in the description. You can either do it now or wait till game day, which is November 2nd, 2024. We will be live streaming for 25 hours, raising money for charity. So thanks everyone in advance. If you can come hang out with us that day, whether you're donating or not, it would mean the world to us. But that is all the housekeeping I have for today, Sam. So why don't we jump into what have you been playing?
Ooh, a fair amount. I'm usually doing all the heavy lifting over at No Limits. Because they don't play games. Surprising, but
that's wild. They're on a PlayStation podcast.
Yeah, some say PlayStation has no games. Maybe they're reinforcing the narrative. I don't know. Disgraceful behavior. What have I been playing? I've been playing a little bit of Pistol Whip in PSVR 2. That was the free game given away last month. Very cool. Very, very Beat Saber-esque, but you're just firing guns instead of swinging swords. I played a little bit more of Cult of the Lamb. That again was a PS Plus game last month. First time playing it.
I was gonna say, have you ever played it before? Because I really liked Call of the Lamb, and that surprised me when I played it because that's not normally a Kevin type of game.
Yeah, I do like it. I think it scratches the kind of Binding of Isaac itch in me, where I've played hundreds of hours of Binding of Isaac, and whilst not quite the same, it has that same sort of roguelite almost element. It's not quite roguelite, but you're venturing out into procedurally generated, dungeons and fighting enemies and stuff, and picking up power-ups and using them in interesting ways. And there's like the Animal Crossing section to it, and I don't engage with that as much, but I appreciate that it's there.
Yeah, I was more about the dungeon crawling, and I would only really engage with the like, oh, you need a bed, here's a bag of leaves for you to lay on, or like, oh, you want to eat something, here's a pile of poop for you to eat, and then they'd be like, thank you. I'm like, oh, you guys are messed up.
Yeah. So I've put about probably 5 hours into that. I have played. I was actually coincidentally this month on PlayStation. Lots of PlayStation stuff. I'm sorry. I feel like I'm betraying the platform that I'm currently on.
You gotta go wash your hands.
Yeah. This month, I think Dead Space is added as one of the PS Plus games, the remake. Coincidentally, about a week before that announcement, I got my physical copy and booted that up for the first time. Obviously, I played Dead Space before, but not the remake. So I've been playing through that a lot this past week, and I recently, actually today, I finished and platinumed it.
I was gonna ask, are you gonna platinum it? Because it's pretty achievable. I know Kyle did it in like 8 hours total or something.
Yeah, it's pretty smooth sailing. The only thing you have to do is finish on the hardest difficulty, and if you die, you can continue, but your save gets knocked down too hard, and there's no way of rescinding that. So you kind of have to save scum and or like pause just as you're about to die and quit out and boot back in. But I did that. Had a wonderful time. It's a real. I actually like Dead Space 2 more, but I'm disappointed that we aren't going to get that remake.
I've never played. I've only played Dead Space Remake. I haven't played any other Dead Space games. And I liked Dead Space Remake when I played it. I have famously said that I enjoyed the Callisto Protocol more, which I know is a hot take, but I did like Dead Space Remake. I couldn't play it on a hard difficulty because I'm just too scared. Like it would have taken me 16 hours to get through that 8-hour experience, if that, because I just walk really slow and like, oh God, they're gonna jump out at me. But I enjoyed it. My big takeaway was like, man, I have more faith than ever in them making an Iron Man game with those flying mechanics. Because I was like, please just give it to me.
1,000%. 1,000%. And I think, is there anything else I've been playing? I'm gonna have to look at my trophy lists. I dipped my toe into The Last of Us Part 1 because again that was added as a PS Plus catalog thing for The Last of Us Day on the 26th. But I haven't gotten very far. I just tried it out because I didn't actually play Part 1 when it came out. The remake of Part 1 obviously played The Last of Us. And then what I'm currently playing, which you pulled me off of.
Yeah, I'm sorry. You can get back to it when we're done here.
Yeah, and I'm waiting to do various things. I'm playing through Doki Doki Literature Club Plus for the first time. And I'm nearly done.
Oh, wow.
I am going to try and go for the platinum. But it seems there's a lot of convoluted things that I need to do. So we'll see how that pans out. It's an interesting game.
First of all, how long is Doki Doki Literature Club?
I would say it took me to get through it the first time because it's like a visual novel type thing. So you can put auto and skip on it speeds things up. But I played it through straight for the first time and it took me oh God. I mean, I read quite fast, but it took me 6 or 7 hours.
Oh, wow. That's longer than I expected for a visual novel.
Yeah, there's a lot of sort of twists and turns that it goes on. And then I've done a couple of consecutive runs after that to do different things. And I've just skipped through it and it's taken like half an hour, 45 minutes per run. So, Yeah, I don't know how much you know about.
I know the entire story of Doki
Okay.
Doki. Like it's funny because I own it on Epic, I believe, and now I have it on PlayStation. I've never played it, but I did listen to a spoiler cast like ages ago, so like I know the big twist.
Mhm.
I know Kyle's gonna play it. He was excited to see that pop up. Like I don't know if he knows anything. I'm not gonna spoil anything here
No,
because
yeah.
the game's 7 years old, but I'm sure people are jumping in for the first time. But what is the plus version? I see Soken is it's the plus version.
Yeah, I'm going to feign ignorance, and I'm not.
Okay.
I don't know what the difference is. I assume maybe there's like additional content, like almost like a director's cut that you get on PlayStation, where it's like additional features or cut storylines. Because there's additional little what I can't remember what they're called, side stories, I think they're called, which is miniature things with the characters from the game that give you additional insight into their personalities and who they are and how they interact and stuff. That could be it, but I don't know for sure.
It has like romance elements, right? Like that's if I am I wrong about that?
Um, in the sense that you pick one of the girls that you sort of
Okay.
want to develop your relationship, not necessarily a romantic one, but just develop your relationship with the most.
Mm.
There are scenarios where that becomes a bit romantic, but it's, besides the twisty stuff, it's not really a risque thing. It's anything but, really.
Has this awakened your inner weeb? Are you? I think you should play Eternites next.
Okay, well, yeah, I'm about like 23% of my way to fulfilling and reaching Kyle status.
20. Wow.
I don't know how much further I'm going to let that bar progress. To be honest, I think I might sort of stem it at 23. I feel like
Mm.
I'm good. I've
Tales of
had enough.
Arise is also on PS Plus.
So
All the Tales games are.
you're saying lots of words now, Kevin. I'm not sure I
Okay.
like any of them. You know?
Okay. Yeah. That's fair. That's fair. Well, why
Yeah.
don't I jump into what I've been playing? The one thing I'm gonna hold off for because it's our main topic, but I have been playing EAFC 25. Uh,
Mm.
so this, yeah, go sleep, guys. Play Hyperdimension Neptunia. That's a weeb game.
You're saying those aren't English words. What does that mean? What does it mean?
Uh, EA Sports FC 25, though. Yes, is it? It does feel different than last year's. I will give them that. As much as a sports game can, like they've changed the engine or the mechanics. Like it feels different to play. I don't know if it particularly feels better to play. And this is how it usually goes. I'm sure they'll patch some stuff, and eventually it'll all just like feel exactly like last year. I'm convinced that they make the last game worse towards the end to when the new one comes out. You're like, oh, this is really good. But the one thing I will say is they have this new mode, and it's called Rush, and it's essentially
Mm.
5-a-side. So you and 3 other friends, no one can play as the goalkeeper. Goalkeeper's always AI. So it's 4v4 real life people. Take notes, Mario Strikers. 4v4, and you just play on this little tiny pitch, and you just go back and forth, smash it in goals. And people are terrible at it because they don't play defense. So if you have a team where you're playing defense, they're like, oh man, they can't score goals. I think our first 3 games as like a full team yesterday, I think we won a combined like 29-0. So we were getting like double digits most games.
Mm.
Big negative though is they have this really annoying commentator who yells goal every single time you score a goal. No different like variations on that, same exact commentary every goal. And I was like, I think this was like one of those last minute additions to the game. They threw it in there. They're like, all right, one take, that's all we got budget for. Here we go. He did it, and that's what you got. So I like the new game mode. It's fun, but overall, it's more FIFA
Mm-hmm.
with worse UI because for some reason we fired all the good UI designers in the games industry. They're all just horrible, horrible looking, horrible navigation. I don't know what's going on.
I'm glad you're having a good time. I'm not a sports game guy. Or a sports guy in real life. So I think then there may be worse things. Maybe it's the weeb stuff that I actually prefer to avoid than sports games. Maybe I should get into sports games to protect myself
we got
from the weeb.
spots. You want to join our club?
I don't know. Maybe.
We could use the center back.
I don't know what that means, but
Brexit means Brexit. Am I right?
Okay, now you've lost me. But
okay,
I mean,
it's a common joke in soccer, football, if you will. When an English player makes a tackle on a non-English player, people go, Brexit means Brexit.
Gotcha.
Little humor there. That's all I've been playing, except for the one thing which we will jump into. So why don't we get right into that? Because we're going to talk about Starfield Shattered Space. Sam, you haven't played this, right?
No.
You played the base game, though.
I did. I played probably 45, 50 hours of the base game.
Geez.
And I do technically have access to it because I bought the deluxe edition or whatever it was. But I'm not going to jump the shark, but I feel I'm probably okay just letting it sit there, you know?
Okay. We will, we'll get into that. You've played more Starfield than I have. And I did I did all the factions. I did the majority of side quests that I could find anyway. I'm sure there's I didn't explore every galaxy. That's absurd. There's way too. Listen, I know everyone was like, "Oh my god, 1,000 planets or whatever." It's too much. We got too much going on in Starfield. So I did everything like main quests or factions that I wanted to do in the base game, and I loved Starfield. I loved the base game. I think I put it third in our game of the year list when we did it last year. So I was pretty excited for Shattered Space, especially because it was focused on House Faroon. And if anyone doesn't know, that is where Andresia's from, who I think is really the only good companion in Starfield, the only one with character depth and good voice acting. So I was looking forward to this because I was like, oh, we're gonna dive into her story more. I romanced her in the base game. I'm sure she's gonna have a lot to say. And imagine my surprise when I boot up Shattered Space and Andresia just doesn't give a crap about anything going on. And this is my biggest criticism of Shattered Space. I'll dive into it more, but my biggest issue with this DLC is that your main companion, who is from this planet, who in the base game is no one knows where it's from. You find her homeworld again, and she genuinely cannot be bothered most of the time. There's a few dialogue options, all right, for especially in the side quests, but there's I'm not going to spoil anything, but the big decision at the end of the DLC you have to make, she does not care either way. She's like, this is really important. And then no matter what you pick, she's like, okay. I'm like, what? I just don't understand the thought process behind some of the design. It's almost as if they were like, well, we have to make the DLC playable in case Andresia is not your companion. And I'm like, okay, but she is my companion. I wanted her to have a lot of dialogue and impact and this to be a very emotional story for her. And it's just not. It isn't. In no way is it. And it really, really took a lot of the enjoyment out of it for me.
Just so we'll get into everything else, I'm sure, but I've heard that it's been pretty commonly reported that Andreja might actually be bugged.
I heard if you have the leadership trait, she's bugged. As far as I could, I don't have that trait. So as far as I could tell, she wasn't bugged because there are times where she'll pop up, you can choose her as a dialogue option. It's just the things she says are meaningless.
Sure.
And the times they pop up don't really they aren't at the important points in the story. Right. I'm sitting here oh, what should I do? This is this should be, I put in air quotes, a galaxy changing decision that could impact everything. And she's just standing in the corner, walking around NPC and I'm like, you're not helping me here. What are we doing?
It's a damn shame.
So that's my biggest issue.
Hmm.
And I will say, I think Starfield Shattered Space starts really good. The opening
Mm.
mission, how you start the game, like you have to go to a random galaxy that you don't have an active quest in, and then you will basically just, oh wow, there's a space station that's been abandoned, and you'll just dock there, and that's how you start the DLC storyline.
Right.
What happens in there, really interesting. I was feeling it. I was like, okay, this is great. Like this is what I'm looking for. And then you go down to the planet and the House of Varun. You get introduced to all the lore, which isn't nearly as cool as the base game made it seem. Like, I think I liked it more when I didn't know a lot about them, because once I actually got there, I was like, you guys are kind of boring. Like, where's all the cool stuff? Uh, and then the main quest logs, or the main quest, is fine. Like, you go on, except for this one mission, which is, it does have some bugs. If you're, I think it can be the second to last mission, but it's either like, it's the last four. It's in the last four. It can be bugged. Horrible mission. I spent 30 minutes bashing my head against the wall. I finally went online. I was like, what am I missing here, guys? Like, I can't progress. And everyone is having this issue. So like, they have some issues with quest design. They have some issues with the story. They have some issues with getting you to care about what's going on. Honestly, this feels less like an expansion and more like we're putting cut content back into the game.
Mm. Oh dear.
I'm gonna pause if you have any questions, because if not, I can keep going. I got some more issues.
No, I think you saying about the I haven't heard anybody mention that seeing what House Ruin is up to sort of took away from the coolness, but I think that's sort of emblematic across most media. Really, it's why Jaws works so well as a film, right? Like, the less you see, the more your imagination has to put in the work, and that's why I agree with you 100% that I would say House Ruin and sort of like the lore surrounding it and Andranger and all that was some of the most interesting stuff in the base game. But the byproduct of that is that if they then decide to explore it, which they obviously have here, you've got preconceived notions and, you know, ideas, and there's like, oh, we're going to see a giant serpent and XYZ and all of this stuff. And if that doesn't deliver, I'm not saying it does or doesn't, I wouldn't know, but I think it's the Wizard of Oz. You peel back the curtain and it's just an old man sat there, and you're like, well, I don't know what I was expecting, but I wasn't expecting that. And it leaves you a bit deflated. And I think that is a problem that I don't know how you would avoid that problem, because it would make sense to explore House Ruin, because it was probably one of the best received parts of Starfield's base game. But yeah, it's weird. I haven't heard anybody say that yet.
Yeah, I was super excited. Like I said, I was super excited for it because House Faroon was this interesting, shadowy figure that we didn't know much about. Like, I went out of my way to, like, where can you encounter some House Faroon people in the base game, because I wanted their weapons. I wanted House Faroon stuff. So when I showed up on their planet, I'd be like, yeah, I'm here. You know, like, I'm one of you. Like, I married the girl. We're all good. And I felt like none of that actually impacted anything. Like, I could have shown up and been like, I'm a Crimson Fleet member. I'm gonna kill y'all, which there are Crimson Fleet on this planet. Makes no sense lore wise. All right. I'm just saying, like, Bethesda, you're really confusing with some of your choices for things that you put on this world, which you say is handcrafted. I don't know how much I believe that. Because a lot of the issues from the base game are still present in this, where it's like, oh, here's a random thing over here, nothing's in there. Oh, that exact same asset is right over here again, nothing in here again. Like, you do have this recurring issue where it's like, I don't, and I've never been one in Bethesda games to, like, I follow the main quest, side quest, and if I discover stuff along the way, that's how I play. I don't just take off on a planet and start looking around. I know some people play that way in their Bethesda games. That's not how I play. So I'm sure there is plenty of stuff I didn't experience on this world. But what I did, I was like, I don't see how this is improved from what we had in the base game. It's still basically rocks with some space animals that I'm going to kill along the way in between my objective markers. And it gets worse for me because, guys, technically, on a technical level, I'm talking frame rate. This game is abhorrent on the Xbox Series X. I don't really have that many issues when I play the base game, except in New Atlantis, you get some frame rate drops in there, which can be fixed. Like when you go up to 40 and 60, where it prioritizes the frame rate, those get a little less issuey on those performance modes. But I dropped this to 30 FPS and it was chugging on this planet. Like I gotta say it. I think we could have held off. I don't know if it. I don't think we're doing Starfield any favors to put the game out, just put the expansion out like it came out, because it does not run well. I know he's not here. Jampack Sam switched to PC because he couldn't play it. He was like, it's a flaming pile of trash on Xbox.
Damn.
It runs poorly. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It runs very poorly.
Yeah. That's so strange. What do you think the reason is? Is there something on this planet that is so, you would think, technically demanding? Like, is there something? Is it the fact that you now have the land vehicle that is making things worse?
I didn't use the land vehicle.
Right. Interesting.
If I had to guess, there are a lot more particle effects, and I'm trying. I don't know how much more I can say without spoiling things that happen. Like some of the enemy, a lot of the enemies you encounter, which, to be fair, there's only 3 new enemies that you'll encounter throughout this entire DLC, and 2 of them are basically the same. But they require a lot of particle effects, lighting, and then in the center of the planet is basically a giant glowing thing at all times. So I don't know if that is what's tanking it, because like in terms of what's on the environment, it doesn't look any like more difficult than what they had previously, to where I'm like, oh, that's what's destroying it. So I'm just looking at like, okay, it has to be things they've added, like these new enemies, like these new effects that they have around the enemies.
Yeah, because you can't. I would dread to imagine that it's just something that, like, it's coming in hot, right? Like you would think they learned from. I mean, clearly to some extent it is, but from the delaying of Starfield and Redfall back in the day to polish, and obviously that did help Starfield. Starfield didn't launch perfectly, but like I don't want to say Bugthesda, but it's like, are we really doing this again?
I didn't have bug issues in the base game, is my annoyance. So like when I encountered multiple here, I was annoyed. I was like, this is actively hindering my enjoyment of the game. And I know I'm going hard on Shattered Space. And if you've seen Open Critic and Metacritic, and they're sitting, I think, in the 60s, if that, at this point, I don't think it's that bad. Like that seems a little low for me. Like this is, like, story is fine. The gameplay is still, if you enjoyed Starfield's gameplay, you will enjoy the DLC gameplay, because it's just more of that. And you get some new weapons, which I only do a melee build. That's how my guy is. So I don't use the guns, but I got a sick new melee legendary, and I was wrecking people. Like there is enjoyment to be had. It's just so many things around the fun stuff takes away from it. Like there's a really good side quest right at the start of this that I enjoyed a lot. So it's not all bad. It's just like it could have been really, really good with some fine tuning, like especially with the Andrasia, get her more involved in the storyline. Like she should have been a required character for, well, I don't want to say required, but like if I can't say that either. She should have been important to this story.
I think that there is clearly, simply, even if I don't know, but like just because of the House Varun connection, it would have made, and I'm sure she is at least somewhat integral to the plot, I would hope.
No, they don't even know she's there.
No.
They don't
Okay.
even acknowledge that you were like, at least when I did. No one on the planet is like, oh, she's one of us, or like, oh, you married her. Like, they don't care. You could bring the robot on and you'd have the same experience, just without less dialogue options.
Because what I was going to say is, you would have thought that even if what you're trying to skirt around, I don't know exactly, but I would say, like, whether she's your companion or not, or whether she is actively like in a good standing with you or not, relationship wise, you would have thought, because of the Varun connection, at the very least, they would have interwoven her in the story, whether she was part of your party at the time or not. And I know that technically, if memory serves, some companions can die in the base game via various methods. So I guess there is an issue there if something happened in your playthrough where Andranger wasn't around. But I don't know, like, surely, again, I'm not going to say anything, but like, the core conceit at the end of Starfield allows for certain things to happen regardless of what happens in your playthrough. So I don't know, surely there will be some workaround, and it's a real bummer, because I think that would have been like a easy home run type thing.
And I've seen people talk about how, like, your companions can obviously hate you and not want to, like, they'll refuse to come with you. But if you're like in a new game plus, like, there are people, and this isn't really a spoiler, but there are new game pluses where you don't have the companions that, like, you start with on your first run. Like, it's either different people, or it's copies of you, it's babies. Like, there are, like, we've all seen the videos at this point. Like, Starfield's been a year. I think we could all talk about that. But I understand that they're like, okay, well, if someone wants to do the DLC in that environment, we have to account for that. But if you have the character available, just put it in the game. It will only enhance the experience. And that really bothers me, that they just kind of hand waved it away and was like, we'll give her a few dialogue lines, and other than that, it's not really that big of a deal. But like I said, DLC is fine. We have a question, Ghostly Guides. With how much there is to play right now, or soon, between Astro, Zelda, Metaphor, is it even worth playing the DLC? Should they just move on from Starfield at this point? I don't think the DLC is something you need to play right now. I think the DLC is something, like, if you have some time and you're bored and you have access to it, I think it's fine to boot up. Like, you're not gonna be miserable. Like, you'll have a fine experience. You might like it more than me. That is obviously subjective. I hope you do. But I don't think it's one like, oh, I have to put down Astrobot, I have to put down Echoes of Wisdom to play the Starfield DLC, because it's not anything groundbreaking. Like, those games are better games than what you're getting here. And I think waiting will only let them fix the technical issues, hopefully improve some of the bugs, and, like, maybe add some more features to what they have here. So I think waiting is probably the optimal experience.
How long did it take you to beat?
I beat the Starfield Shattered Space main quest and a few side quests in 5 to 6 hours. So it's pretty short.
Not too much of a time commitment. Yeah, and I would also, again, as someone who has not played it and likely will not play it, I would assume the thing you don't have to say is, if you liked Starfield, you'll probably like this. If you didn't like Starfield, this isn't going to change your opinion.
I would fully agree with that. Like, I would even say, if you liked Starfield, you might not like this. But if you didn't like Starfield, you're not gonna like this. This is not going to change your opinion. This is not was it Far Harbor DLC? Like, this is not a game-changing expansion for the game. In terms of the second part of that question, moving on from Starfield, I think I'm ready to close the book on Starfield with this expansion. I don't feel like I need more content from it, and I think they have another year, or at least another expansion, planned I don't know if that's needed at this point. Like, if they decide in 20 years to do Starfield 2, because that's how long Bethesda games take to make. If they decide in 20 years to do Starfield 2, will I play it? Absolutely, and I'll probably love it because I think Starfield has a lot going for it. I just don't. I like it more than Fallout. I still like it more than Fallout. Fallout like just doesn't vibe with me, except the TV show. Man, what a show! What a show! But Elder Scrolls, I think, is still clear of Starfield in every single way.
Yeah, but it's interesting as someone who, we talked about it when the game came out and around Game of the Year. It's not that I didn't like Starfield. It's just that it like severely disappointed me because, in comparison to your position, it sort of just it falls short of both other IP from Bethesda, and it like regressed in certain ways where I was like, why did you make this design decision? Like the exploration is the best part in my opinion. It's like wandering over the hill in Skyrim or what's inside this destroyed building in Fallout. It's the unexpected, and Starfield just sort of became very easy to expect. Like I know what's in this building, I know where the enemies are going to be, I know the layouts and all of that. I would say that I agree. I think Starfield, you've established it as an IP, you've put out the first game, and not that this is like a real deciding factor, I don't think, business wise, but you put out your first expansion, which, like you say, is maybe a stretch calling it an expansion, and it hasn't been received that great. I would maybe, if they did have multi-year plans post maybe next year's DLC, I think you stick to that. You do another one, you take feedback hopefully from this and refine even more, and you send Starfield out with a bang. Because to leave Starfield where it is now, that might be a bit of a sour note to end on. So really throw everything at the wall, go all out, bigger, better, and then move on ASAP, which they already are, because that they're pretty much in full production for Elder Scrolls 6 at this point.
Oh yeah. This is I imagine they have a small team working on like updates and additional content for Starfield, but the majority of Bethesda Game Studios is definitely working on Elder Scrolls.
Yeah, and I think like you say, combining both points, they've laid the groundwork, they've established the IP, people like it, and they have plenty of pointers to improve on for a sequel in the future. But you don't, for this being the first game, you don't need to just continually flood it with stuff. You've got Shattered Space, you've got maybe another DLC next year, and you've got the modding community, and you can leave it at that. And in 7, 8, 12, 15, 35 years time, we'll get, like you say, Starfield 2, and hopefully it is the thing that wins me over and maybe makes me see what I felt was lacking in the first game. So fingers crossed. I really am rooting for them because I love Bethesda.
Me too.
I don't have any interest in going back to Starfield, but I think that that's just because of how the game is designed. I think if they action on the things, which hopefully they will, especially with the feedback to Shattered Space, it's only up from here. From my perspective. That sounds a bit negative, but
no, I get what you're saying. Like, people like to act like Starfield came out and bombed, and I'm like, it's like an 85 Open Critic. It sold at least 12 million copies on like Steam alone. I think like it was a successful game. Like, I know people like to poo-poo it because it's not what they wanted or what they expected, but no game company is going to be like, oh, we can make another one of these and sell 15 million copies and like it'll be hopefully better. I think they're going to take that every day of the week.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to PS5 Pro, and then none of these technical issues are there.
You got there about 2 seconds ahead of me. I'm not entirely convinced that Starfield is going to come to PS5.
I'm not either at this point.
Because I feel like if it was going to happen, we would have at least heard about it. And I know that there were people being like, it's being worked on or they're considering it or whatever. But I feel like we're at essentially the year mark now, right past the year mark. because it came out in September
Yes,
last year.
yeah, September 6th last year, something
Yeah.
like that, I think.
So, and the rumor was that I guess technically the rumor was that post Shattered Space it would come to PS5, which is like here and now, but I feel like we would be hearing about it more. So if it did come, I don't like it enough to buy it again because I have it on Xbox. But yeah, I still think that the IP has insane potential if they just, like I say, hammer out those little rough points.
Also, it was September 6th. I nailed it. Whew. Yeah.
You've got a better memory than I.
So good. So good. Well, I think that's all I have to say on Shattered Space right now. It's okay, not good, not great. I'm ultimately disappointed with the expansion. Still love the base game. It's not like I'm gonna go trash. Like I still think Starfield's worth playing if you haven't played it. So
Sure.
let's move on to our second story. We have the Game Pass update for October, and it's an interesting one. And I'm gonna tell you why after I read it. So, coming to Xbox Game Pass, available right now. MLB The Show 24 for console at the Xbox Game Pass standard tier. Open Roads for console at the Xbox Game Pass standard tier. Sifu for cloud console PC at the Xbox Game Pass Ultimate tier, PC tier, and standard tier. October 7th, you get Mad Streets for cloud console PC at Ultimate, PC, and standard. October 10th, Inscription for cloud console PC at Ultimate, PC, and standard. Now, for longtime listeners of the show, you might have been like, Kevin, that sounded a little different than your normal Game Pass updates when you talk about it. And that's because they're doing this great thing. Love it. Definitely not being sarcastic. Where they're just inflating the Game Pass drops with the standard tier. They combined them into one. So MLB The Show and Open Roads have been on Xbox Game Pass Ultimate for months. And now they're like, we're going to throw them on the graphic to make it look like this is a really big drop. And you might not think this is a big deal because, yes, it does say standard underneath. It says Ultimate, Standard, and PC underneath a lot of these, as I've read. But if you go online, and I've seen this multiple places, people being like, we already have MLB The Show. Why is this listed? Unless you are a enthusiast in the hardcore gaming space, like we are, like people listening to this podcast, you probably aren't familiar or memorizing all of the Xbox Game Pass tiers. So when you see this, I think it's confusing. I think it's sending the wrong message. I don't think this is the right way to market this to people.
Yeah, and I would say it goes even beyond that. It's even like not only people not knowing the tiers and the differences between them, but if you don't know that, you are almost certainly not going to know when games come out specifically, and therefore what tiers they are currently available on, and then what time or what date games will then be available on the other tiers, which when they trickle down, when does that happen? Xbox aren't going to tell you. They don't want to tell you. Do they know? Does anybody know? I don't. I agree. It's a mess. It's a mess.
Yeah, and we all made fun of PlayStation when they reintroduced their tiers, but I think their announcements are way better. Like they're so much clearer. They're at different times throughout the month. It's stated extra premium. Here's the essential. Like just do something like that, Xbox. And I get you're trying to consolidate it. You're like, oh, we only want one easy to read graphic, but I just don't think this is the way to get that point across to consumers, because you're going to have months where, oh, this game that came out 3 months ago is now reappearing on this graphic right now, and people are going to get confused. Like, when are games available? When are they leaving? It's just not a very good system. I've been critical of the new tiers since they were announced. I think standard is stupid. For the price of the original Game Pass Ultimate, you now get no day one games. Yeah. Sign me up. I can't imagine who's at this tier. Like, who is this for?
Yeah, I mean, I said in the Discord when we were talking about this a day or two ago, like you said, I think that whilst not perfect, the way that PlayStation does it is like demonstrably better. And again, you still kind of have to know what the difference between the tiers is, but they at least break up the announcements where you get, these are the monthly games that are on every tier, the 3 or 4 games you get a month, whatever. And then they do the catalog update for PlayStation Plus in a completely separate thing at a different time of the month. And they do the whole blog post. They break down in just a very simple list which games are in which tier. They segment premium off, all of that stuff. And you still have to have like basic comprehension of how the tiers work, but they aren't all, like you say, just piled together into a thing where you have to read the tiniest fine print to understand what games you might actually have access to.
And I'm also just disappointed that it seems 3 games is now the the ultimate standard, as I like to. I shouldn't use standard; going to get confused. But this is the since the price increase, every drop has been about 3 games. That's all I'm saying. Like it's a little weird that you increase the price and now we suddenly get less games every drop.
Yeah, I mean that's what subscription services do, right? They have to cut back on content because they aren't making the money, and then they just try to squeeze the audience more. And like I'm speaking as somebody who's on PlayStation Premium, right?
Me too, but I'm only on it because I got grandfathered in at that $80.
Of course. What a steal!
I know, at half price. I'm never leaving.
God damn you! But like, I mean, I guess technically that's the way that PlayStation Plus has always been, where you're lucky if you get more than 3 games a month. But I think that might just be emblematic of the idea that whilst Game Pass is still definitely important to Xbox, it's becoming far less of the focus. It's much like them saying, you don't need a console, or they offer Fire Stick or whatever. It's Game Pass is just an option to access their content rather than the primary thing they're trying to drive. With Project Latitude and everything, there's a big mixing pot of stuff going on at the same time that I think you can kind of pick the truth out of it. I think where I get that they're cutting back on the number of games. You would hope that is buttressed by an increase in quality. That isn't always the case, obviously. And you have terrible months on PlayStation Plus where the games they put in are just trash. Or you get like 1 good game and then 2 games that you would never, ever, ever play. And that's the gambit. That's just how it goes. You kind of have to take what you get what you're given. And if you don't like it, then don't subscribe.
Well, let's talk about the actual quality of the games joining. So I'm not going to talk about MLB The Show or Open Roads. They've been available. But Sifu, Mad Streets, and Inscription are the new games. And I know you're very passionate about one of these.
Mad Streets. Ooh, boy.
Yeah, that's the one I was talking about. Mad Streets.
What a banger.
I don't even know what that game is.
Neither do I. Sifu is a game I will champion till the day I die. It is so magnificent. It completely blindsided. I think it came out 2022. Christ,
that sounds right.
2 years ago. Completely took me by surprise very early in that year, and it stayed. I think it was my number 2 game of the year that year. It was 3. I can't remember exactly where it panned out, but it was high. Sifu is wonderful, and I think that it coming to Game Pass is, you better play it, people. You better play it, because not only is it. If you want quality games coming to Game Pass, you need to support the quality games that come to Game Pass. And Sifu is a quality game coming to Game Pass. I know that it's not going to be for everyone. It does have a very steep learning curve. But for the visuals, for the music, for the art direction and the style, for the unique mechanics, for the addictiveness of its gameplay loop, I really highly encourage people to check it out, because there really isn't almost anything like it, I would say.
I was just looking at Sifu because I was like, well, first of all, I haven't played it, and I was wondering if I should. But then I remember it being like hard, so I just Googled if it had an easy mode, and they apparently did add an easy mode at some point.
They did. Yes. I mean, you're a wimp if you use it. Of course, I will never abide that. Get good.
Find me a Weenie Hut Junior. You know what I'm saying?
I don't know what that means. I'm British.
SpongeBob reference.
Damn, I just got shown up live. Does that show that I didn't really watch SpongeBob?
I guess, yeah.
What a cretin I am.
How long to beat Sifu? I need a game to play until Metaphor.
I think it's if you put it on easy mode, especially, and that's not a jab at you. I think it would take like
a few
4 or 5 hours.
Yeah, this is 8 hours for normal. So
yeah, so it's a game with 4 levels. That's all it is, from as far as I remember. 4, maybe 5 levels. No,
really.
4. Yeah, but it essentially, I won't spoil too much of it, but you are, and the enemies are in the exact same positions every single time you go through. You are essentially just fighting your way through these different levels, and you are trying to beat the boss at the end of each level. And the gimmick is that each time you die, your character ages. So you start out I think you start out at 20. You're 20 years old. So if you die, you age 21. And then if you die again, you age 2 years. So you turn 23. And then if you die again, you age 3 years. So you turn 26, and so on and so on and so on. And the older you get, you get sort of gray hair, and your visuals, aesthetics change, but you also become stronger. So your hits punch harder, but you also can take less hits. So you become like a glass cannon as you get older, which means that more often than not, you're going to fail in the opening hours of the game over and over and over again. But you get into a rhythm where you just sort of learn. Again, all the enemies are in the exact same positions. Fights can play out differently depending on what you do and how they swarm you and stuff, but they all come from the same direction. So when you know where they're coming from, you just get into a flow where you like kick a stool at this person to break their leg, cause them to fall over. That gives you time to block this guy, sweep them out, etc., etc. And some of the visual design, and there are twists that happen that you wouldn't ever see coming. It is a very, very special game. I'm very nostalgic for it because it was the first game I ever worked. So
he just cut his mic out, people. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay.
I hope you can hear me.
I can.
So it's a very special game to me because it's the very first one I ever worked on as a solo project at IGN. So it holds a very near and dear place in my heart for that reason, but also just because I think it's a really, really excellent game that more people should play. And now everybody on Game Pass has access to it, so do that.
Well, I just downloaded it to my Xbox, so
hell yeah,
I'll give it a try. I've also heard good things about Inscription. That's a card roguelike, I believe.
Yes and no.
Okay.
It is like in the immortal words of Shrek. It's like an onion. There are many layers.
Yeah, of course.
And the card battling thing is but the first layer. That game as well goes places you would not anticipate. It's one of those games where if you are even the slightest bit interested, go in knowing as little as possible, and I guarantee you that at least one of the turns that it takes, of several turns, it does not stay a card battler. That's all I'll say.
All right. And I did look up what Mad Streets was. It's like a physics party fighting game. So I imagine something like Party Animals and Gang Beasts.
Okay. Yeah. You can never do with it, and you can never have too many of those, right?
Well, I kind of hit my limit, actually.
Okay.
Kind of all done with those.
A question just before we move on or wrap up or whatever. About the Game Pass drop.
Mm-hmm.
I'm an idiot. Okay, self-proclaimed. all of those games are listed on standard.
The 3 we just talked, yeah, they're in standard. Yeah.
So does that mean that there is no exclusive games or content for Ultimate this month?
Yes.
Because all 5 of those games are in standard.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes, because none of those are day one games. I think it almost feels to me, we might need more evidence to support this, but it almost feels to me like unless it is a day one, first, third party drop into Game Pass, that it will probably be both standard and ultimate. Like Sifu's been on Xbox for like a year, right? So
Sure.
It's been available to buy. They're just going to throw it into both tiers. Same with, I guess Mad Streets isn't day one. I don't know anything about that game, but like Inscription's been available as well. Those make sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense from the way that the process works into games trickling tiers and stuff. What it's simultaneously strange that they aren't giving people who subscribe to Ultimate or maybe bounce between subscriptions or dip and dive. They aren't giving you a reason this month to subscribe to anything but standard in terms of the games they're dropping.
Maybe the second half of the month for the drop, because we get two a month, we'll have something. But as of right now, that is correct. There's this drop. There's no reason to have Ultimate if you're interested in something in this. Like if you don't have Game Pass right now, standard could get you all these games.
Yeah, and I suppose I don't want to get tinfoil hat, but it could also maybe be that, at least like you say, for the first half of this month before the second drop, if you want to play the new thing, go play Shattered Space, because you have access to Starfield through Game Pass.
Yes,
and then you obviously have to buy Shattered
and you need
Space.
Ultimate. You need Ultimate for Starfield.
That's correct, actually. Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, interesting.
Because that's not in standard, despite being out over a year now.
So that could be the thing technically that gets you to subscribe to Starfield. So you'd have to buy the game and Shattered Space.
Same with Diablo 4. Vessel of Hatred comes out on Tuesday.
That's true.
And that's only an Ultimate as well.
Do you get the expansion with Game Pass?
No, you don't. You have to buy. Yeah, you gotta buy Vessel of Hatred. I think it's pretty pricey too. I want to say it's like almost a full cost of a game, or so. It comes with a month of Ultimate. I know if you buy it though.
I mean, I think that is very business savvy of Xbox. I mean, it's annoying, I guess, for Game Pass subscribers that you don't get the additional content with the game in Game Pass, but it does mean that players have easier access to the games, and then if they play them and fall in love with them from the service, you then gate the content off so that they're more inclined to spend money.
I was going to say, I wonder if we continue to see that going forward, where they release basically full price expansions or DLC, or I know Starfield isn't, which don't buy it for $30, people. That's too much money. But like Vessel of Hatred is essentially, let me look it up. I'm almost certain it's pretty expensive. Vessel of Hatred price. Pre-purchase. Come on. Can I get a price though? PlayStation Store will help me.
It always does.
Yeah, it's set. Expansion bundle. No, I just want the expansion. Why is it so hard to find the expansion? It's $40. It's $40. Okay, but $40 is basically the price of a game, right? So I wonder if we see, hey, the base game's on Game Pass Ultimate because it's our first party titles. We're going to charge you $40 for an expansion. Maybe we'll bundle in a month of Ultimate so you can just buy the expansion, try out Game Pass. Now we got you hooked. You got to keep the subscription or buy the game.
Yeah. And it makes perfect sense for them to get what money they can, because they technically aren't getting any additional money out of existing Game Pass subscribers with a new game that they release. So if they do that with DLC, like we're saying, or I've said before, like what they're doing in terms of early access for some of their games, Starfield had it, I think Redfall had it, Indiana Jones is going to have it, but you have to pre-order. You don't get that early access via Game Pass. So you'll get the game day one on Game Pass in Ultimate, but if you want the additional goodies or the benefits that you might have previously traditionally expected maybe via Game Pass, you now have to pay for the privilege. Which is, I mean, it's rough for Game Pass subscribers, but it is also, I would argue, probably the best middle ground that people can hope for. Xbox could be far more aggressive in stripping away some of these benefits. I'm surprised they haven't. So, it's not a suck up and shut up type thing. It's just sort of, it is what it is. If you want the DLC, go buy it.
Yes, fully agreed. Well, Sam, that will do it for tonight's show. Thank you again for jumping in last minute. Can you let everyone know where they can find you?
People can find me anywhere and everywhere at Sam Heaney, Heaney.
Awesome. Everyone make sure to go follow him and check out No Limits, our PlayStation show. If you're if you're new here or you haven't for some reason, if you've only been on the Xbox side. You can find me everywhere at the Muffin Mon. It's a 1-7I, 0-7A. Follow us at Save Game Media to stay up to date with all of our latest content. Until next week, we'll see you